Hey, what's going on? I am Matt O'Leary back with another video, and today what I want to get into is this article that I saw going through Jets free agents and off-season targets via trade. This list was a little bit strange to me, and I think it was worthwhile to talk about. Some of the connections made sense for the Jets on players that they should be trying to go after on, for the offense at the quarterback position, and others were just very, very bizarre. It was an interesting list, so it caught my attention. I figured I'd share it with you guys. I don't know if you guys saw it, but we'll start with the ones that make some sense. So there were 6 guys on this list, and 4 of them were like, okay, yeah, sure, and 2 were just way out there and just frankly a little bit bizarre. So the first is Aaron Rodgers, which obviously the Jets are going to be in the market for a quarterback this offseason. So he is one of the better quarterbacks on the market. That is going to be a connection whether he comes to the New York Jets or not. It feels like the Jets are making Aaron Rodgers their number 1 target this offseason. That's just the feel that everyone has right now. And we'll see if that changes over the next week or so. But Aaron Rodgers on the list makes sense. Same with Jimmy G, right? Same reasoning. Jets need a quarterback. Jimmy G is going to be a free agent. There's the connection with Robert Saleh. There are reasons to believe that the Jets could go with Jimmy G. Now, I think that one would be a little bit more likely if Mike LaFleur was still here and sticking around, but I think that one drops down a little bit, and especially with his injury history, that one scares me a lot. But okay, I'll give you that one. Those 2 make sense for, obvious reasons. They need a quarterback. Those are 2 of the top 5 options, probably in roughly. So, okay, I'll give you that. Those 2. Next up is Jordan Poyer, which, okay, sure. The Jets need a safety help. They are more than likely just going to let LaMarcus Joyner retire or walk. He is or was not very effective for the New York Jets in 2022. So why would you possibly want to bring him back? And Jordan Whitehead's a possible cut candidate. You can free up over $7 million if you move on from him. And frankly, he wasn't very good in 2022. So if the Jets wanted to go another direction and go with a veteran in Poyer, well, yeah, he's a little bit on the older side, but he is absolutely someone who could still play at a high level. And pairing with a younger player, like someone you draft, or even someone like Tony Adams, who the Jets seem to be high on, and a lot of fans were high on him, how he played down the stretch last year. He looked like one of their better safeties when you consider what LaMarcus Joyner was supposed to be and the money you spent for Jordan Whitehead. That's a little sad, but I think there's absolutely a world where Tony Adams can compete for a starting job at one of the safety spots. So, okay, Jordan Poyer, sure. You can sell me on that one. And the last one that makes sense is Mike McGlinchey, and I don't love that one. I don't think they would spend on the offensive tackle market. I think they'd be more willing to draft one. McGlinchey's a right tackle, so that would mean that you're, well, I guess either relying on Mekhi Becton or Max Mitchell to win the left tackle job, which I don't love that. Maybe you could play AVT at left tackle. There are certainly other options, or you could, maybe you draft one and you just forget, Mekhi Becton's for depth and Max Mitchell's for depth. Both those guys are depth guys, which, okay, maybe that's the case, but that one would be a little bit surprising, but I understand the logic. I understand where this guy's coming from on those first 4. The last 2, or the next 2, it wasn't in chronological order of the article, but these 2 are so out there and so bizarre, and I don't think make any sense whatsoever for the New York Jets. The first is Tony Pollard, the running back from the Dallas Cowboys. Now, Ezekiel Elliott is either going to have to restructure his contract or the Cowboys will cut him, but I think they're going to do everything in their power to retain Tony Pollard. He's been the better running back over the last 2-3 years anyway there in Dallas, but why would the Jets spend on the running back position when you have Breece Hall? And I know he's coming back off an injury, but you found Zonovan Knight, who was effective for you as an undrafted free agent last year. You drafted Michael Carter a couple years ago, and yeah, he had a down year, but there's still upside there. And oh, by the way, you traded for James Robinson, so if you really felt like that was a need as well, wouldn't you rather just run it with those 3 guys, or maybe even bring in Ty Johnson before you spend big money on Tony Pollard? Is that really the best allocation of resources? And I'm a huge Tony Pollard fan. Genuinely, I love to pick him up in fantasy. The last 2-3 years, I picked him up. He's one of my favorite running backs in the league. I'm not saying he's one of the best running backs, but you have favorite players around the league. He's one of my favorite guys, and so is this next guy even. But it just doesn't make any sense for this team, especially when you consider his market value, according to SpotRack, is $9 million a year. $9 million? Again, I like Tony Pollard, but why would the Jets be allocating their limited cap space on the running back position? That is one of the least, that's probably the position I'm worried about the least. Actually, maybe second least. I might put corner as least worried about. Running back, second least worried about. You invested a second-round pick, a high second-round pick that you traded up for in Breece Hall, and you have other guys on the roster who can fill in if Breece Hall is slow coming back. That one, I don't get that one at all. And even worse, arguably, is the last guy on this list in Dalton Schultz. If you remember last offseason, I was banging the drum for Dalton Schultz, and then he got franchise tagged. I was upset about it because I love him. I think he's a really good player. Again, two guys that I really like, in Tony Pollard and Dalton Schultz, but how is he fitting into the mix here? How is he fitting into the mix? Tyler Conklin was paid big money last offseason, and CJ Uzomah was paid big money last offseason. And both of those guys, you can't really get out of their contract this year. You can't. And oh, by the way, you spent a third-round pick on Jeremy Ruckert, who's a developmental guy, sure, didn't really have much of a role, but proved at the end of last year that he could, at minimum, be a very good blocker in this league. And I like his upside. What he did at Ohio State, I think he was an underutilized pass catcher at Ohio State. So I still like Ruckert. I'm not out on him. I know he didn't really have much of a role as a rookie, but I'm not out on Jeremy Ruckert. I think those, as your three tight ends going into 2022, are fine. And you could argue, would you like an upgrade on either Conklin or Uzomah? I suppose so, but you can't get out of either of those contracts. Both of those guys are going to be here. It's too much dead money to move on from either of those guys. And this is another one. His market value, according to SpotRack, was over $15 million. You're going to spend a combined $24 million on running back and tight end with the other holes on this roster that you have, potentially losing your starting center. You have to figure out left tackle. You need interior defensive line depth. You might need another wide receiver, assuming you're moving on from Corey Davis. I think you do. So yeah, probably should use another wide receiver. Linebacker help, safety help. Hell, I just said it earlier. You might need 2 new starting safeties. And the best we can come up with is Tony Pollard or Dalton Schultz in a top 6 free agent list? Really? I don't get this one at all. That is absolutely bizarre to me. That is extremely bizarre. Again, the top 4, yeah, Rodgers, Jimmy G, sure. Quarterback is absolutely a need for this New York Jets football team. Jordan Poyer, yep, veteran presence on the defense at safety, a position of need, sure. McGlinchey, I don't really love, but they need offensive line help, so sure. That one makes sense. But again, Pollard and Schultz, woof. I don't know. Let me know your take down below in the comments. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Once again, I am Matt O'Leary. I will talk to you next time.